Ladies and gentlemen, we are a couple months away from training camp, which means QB1 battle is one of my favorite storylines to follow every single year. So today we're going to go really quickly and predict who I think are going to win these QB1 battles. Now, there aren't a ton going on this year, but I did go down the list and I picked out the ones that I think probably are a legit QB1 battle. One of them is kind of questionable, and we'll talk about that. So let's get right into it. All ball, no fluff on this channel. Saints, Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck. Now, the Saints selected Tyler Shuck with the 40th overall pick, and by all accounts, Kellen Moore loves him. This is Kellen Moore's guy through and through. And I think that if they find themselves in a situation where this is a close competition where, Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck are razor close here, I think you got to go with Tyler Shuck just because you did select him 40th overall, somewhat of a premium draft pick. And again, he is handpicked by the new head coach. So if it's a close competition, I think you go with Shuck. Yes, he's an older rookie, but who cares, right? But it would not shock me at all if Spencer Rattler won this thing because he did have flashes last season. The Saints were horrible, but when Spencer Rattler was on the field, his teammates around him, the weapons, the offensive line were compiled of guys that probably should never see an NFL field, and that's just being honest, right? They had a ton of injuries, but Rattler did show flashes, and it just genuinely would not surprise me if he did win that job. But with that being said, I'm going to predict that Tyler Shuck wins it because I think it'll be a close competition. And I think when it's close, you got to go with the guy the head coach handpicked. So the next one I want to talk about is this one is the Giants. Now, I don't know if this is a legit quarterback competition, but we have all seen Russell Wilson play over the last few years. It's not the Russell Wilson that will eventually be going into Hall of Fame one day, right? He is probably going to end up being the starter just because off name value alone. But I don't think he will end the season as a starter. So for the Giants, I'm going to predict Wilson wins the job, but I don't think he ends the year starting. I think they probably turn to Jameis Winston at some point. I don't think Jackson Dart is ready yet. I think Jackson Dart needs to sit at least a year. If I were Brian Daboll, I think just out of the options that we have on the roster, Jameis Dart and Russell Wilson. Personally, I think that Jameis Winston gives you the best chance to win. I know that's not saying much, but I just think out of the options that you have, that's who I would probably go with. But just for the video, I am predicting Russell Wilson will be QB1, but I think they'll probably end the season with Jameis Winston starting games for them. Okay. Next one, the Colts. We have Anthony Richardson and we have Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones. Now, this one is, man, Anthony Richardson, I don't understand what the Colts seen when they drafted him so high. I don't see what anybody that liked him seen. He was just never good in college, super inaccurate. And no, this is not a case of Josh Allen where he can just automatically turn good. Josh Allen is the minority. Like that just doesn't happen. And Anthony Richardson just his redeeming quality is athleticism, but athleticism alone isn't going to win you football games. And he's been horrible so far in the NFL, super inaccurate, and he's just not a good passer at all. Yes, he could still develop, but I just don't think he has it in him to develop to the level to win enough games to sustain a starting career in the NFL. That being said, Daniel Jones sucks too. All right, Daniel Jones sucks as well, but I think as of now he is a better passer than Anthony Richardson. So I think, and not to mention the injuries with Anthony Richardson, he's got a messed up shoulder. He's out right now. He's injured the shoulder before, but he should be back by training camp or during training camp, I think. But I think Daniel Jones wins this. I think he's a better passer, and I think so far the offense that Shane Steichen has designed relies a lot on Anthony Richardson's legs. And Daniel Jones is a really good athletic quarterback too that can also run. So I think the offense transitions well from Richardson to Daniel Jones. I think he can do a lot of the same stuff with his legs, and he's a better passer. Therefore, I think that Daniel Jones will win this quarterback competition. Now, the next one here and the last one and the biggest one is the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns, all my life, it seems like these guys have been trying to find a quarterback. And when they actually found one, they ended up moving off from him. Shout out to Baker Mayfield, who just had 40 plus touchdowns. Genuinely phenomenal season, top 5 quarterback last year. But that being said, the Browns, here they are again looking for a quarterback. You got Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco. Uh, Shadur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. Two of those guys they drafted this season or this past draft in the same draft, which is utterly ridiculous, especially for a team that needs to be stockpiling picks and actually drafting people that are going to help their football team build up again. Drafting two quarterbacks is absolutely asinine. Just genuine malpractice from the Cleveland Browns. That being said, I think that the Cleveland Browns want Kenny Pickett to win this job. The problem is it's Kenny Pickett. I think like what does that give you, right? Like unless you're just planning on going through the season, going through the motions, and then going and drafting another quarterback next year high, well, that makes you drafting two quarterbacks this year even more ridiculous, right? So I don't. It's probably going to be Kenny Pickett. I don't think Joe Flacco has anything to offer. You know, he might spot start some games this year just because Kenny Pickett will be awful. But I think you have to give it to either Sanders or Dylan Gabriel. I would not be shocked if either Sanders or Gabriel wins this job. I think that out of the two, the Browns would probably prefer Gabriel just because it comes with less of a circus, right? But I mean, I just don't see the upside of putting in Kenny Pickett or Joe Flacco as a starter unless you're just completely planning to tank the season and, redraft another quarterback next year. So I think you should look to Shadur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel. Out of those two, it's really a toss up. I think, like I said, they would prefer Gabriel to win, but it genuinely would not shock me if Sanders won. But just for the sake, again, of picking who I think will win the job, win in parentheses or quotations, I think it's probably going to be Kenny Pickett because I think that's who the Browns brass wants to win the job. Appreciate you guys watching. Like the video. I really would appreciate that. And subscribe. Peace.